and welcome to Thinking Outside the Pod. We have a special guest for this episode, Mark Selzer. He's a comedian, I guess, among other things, out of California. We contacted him through Twitter, so we're grateful. We're
happy to announce he'll be joining us.
Yeah, so
over the phone for this episode.
Yeah, so welcome, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, not a problem at all. My name's Jimmy. Patrick.
I'm Patrick.
Fisher. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we want to do is just get to know you, kind of some basic things, and then just go from there. First things first. What would you describe what you do, as far as what would you say your job description would be?
Well, I'm a performance artist, basically, which basically comes from the art community. But at one point, I just decided, like Andy Kaufman, who was also a performance artist, let's just call it comedy, and that way people will, look at it and they don't really understand what's going on. They can just laugh.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's what I decided to do. I'm also an artist. I showed in museums and galleries for a long time. I got tired of being a homeless, famous artist. So I kind of quit and was running a business. But, this is, what I do almost every day. If I don't, I get incredibly bored.
Oh, I hear that. We hear that. What part of California are you based out of?
I am in Hollywood, California, right where the stars are on the sidewalk, about 3 blocks away from where the hands and footprints of the stars are down there. And so I walk by that every day. And also on Hollywood Boulevard, we have this pageant, this ever-evolving pageant of people that dress up as superheroes and characters from movies.
Oh wow.
Constantly evolving. And it's constantly a drama because for a while they were chasing them off and arresting them.
Yeah.
And then there was a lawsuit by the ACLU saying, no, and they won it. You can hang out there and, dressed however you want if you so desire.
So loitering is accepted as long as you're dressed as a character.
What?
Loitering is accepted as long as you're dressed up as a character.
Right. You're not really loitering. You're performing in some way. And there's lots of people, too, that play music, and you see various people come and go.
Heck
and
yes.
Various people set up. There's a guy out there now who looks like Prince, and he dresses up like Prince, and he brings huge amplifiers that he powers with car batteries.
Oh my!
And he dresses in sequin suits and has a little mustache, and he plays one of those little keyboards that looks like a guitar.
Yeah.
He plays one of those. It's very bizarre. He draws quite a crowd, though.
Yeah, well, there's always something to see. I bet out there, man. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy. You were naming where you live. We're down here in San Antonio, Texas. There's barely some tourists. Well, we're mostly a tourist town, but those places that you listed, like the I guess it's the Chinese theater. Is that where the handprints are? Yeah, it's iconic.
Yeah,
it's
through the Chinese theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then all the.
There's a famous one there's an episode of I Love Lucy where she steals John Wayne's hands and footprints out of there.
Oh my!
And that one's really interesting because he instead of his handprints, he puts a fist print.
Yeah.
And he has cowboy boots. And the weirdest one out there is Marilyn Monroe's hands and footprints. And they feel haunted. You feel like somehow she's haunting her hands and her footprints. Very strange.
Huh.
Well, you kind of touched on it before. You're a performance artist, or you kind of just label it under the broad category comedian. How did that kind of start? What kind of prompted you to do that, or what were you doing before to get to that?
Well, my whole life on and off, I've been doing performance art, even before I knew it was performance art. Like when I was in high school, when the Pope died, I ran for Pope.
Yeah.
I like decided, hey, let's run for Pope, and I made up these little cards and went around and said, "Hi, I'm running for Pope. My name is Mark Selzer." It was a performance art piece. It was a joke. It was a goof, and I had a teacher actually thought I was completely serious and tried to let me down very gently, saying, "Mark, I'm sure you'll be a good Pope, but you know that you might not win this."
Was that the only flack you ever caught for that? Nobody like tried to.
Well, no, some other people. The people just thought I was, kind of nuts because I was goofing off, and people thought it was funny, or they didn't know what to think at all, and because I was always a very abstract communicator. And then I went on to perform in some bands that were basically performance art pieces, and then I went to art school. And I did a lot of performance art there, and then I performed in some galleries here and there, and also some bars and places like that where people were doing performance art and poetry. So I was performing, and then I went on to do lots of political speeches, which had some humor in them, and also play in a rock band, an experimental rock band that was based on Rod McEwen. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was an interesting character. He was a singer and the only poet with a star on Hollywood Boulevard and the best-selling poet of all time. And he also sang, and we did kind of very abstract versions of a lot of his songs. And then at one point I just decided, almost out of sheer boredom, that I was going to do some comedy or basically do performance art, taking on some of the attributes of comedy. And I did it out of sheer boredom, but I never thought I would do it. Because I always, if you grow up in Los Angeles, I don't know how it is out there, but if you grow up in Los Angeles, almost everyone you meet thinks that they are someday going to be famous.
Yeah.
They are a wannabe actor, actress, musician, comedian,
very dramatic out there, very
playwright, writer, everyone you meet, and it's just the most terrible thing. You're like, you're never going to be anything, you suck.
They'll be like, stick to your day job, guys.
That horrible wanting and longing to be every waitress in L.A. is an actress. Like, if you ever want to get along well with your waitress in L.A., you just say, well, how's the acting going? And they'll tell you,
Mm-hmm. Or
immediately they'll start talking to you about their acting.
What's like they say, if everybody could be an actor, then the food industry would totally die out in Hollywood. Nobody would be serving in restaurants or anything like that.
Right. You say, what? I guess they stopped calling, there's an old joke, I guess they stopped calling the actresses and started calling them actors, getting rid of the female version of it. But here in Los Angeles, we still call them waitresses.
Nice.
Old joke. I think some other people have told it before, but anyway, that's what we call them here. And it's just, I just hated that whole syndrome, that whole mental illness that I've experienced my whole life, and I never wanted to be one of those people.
Where everybody just thought it was going to happen.
I just got so bored and decided I'm going to go up and start performing. And, I've gotten a pretty good reaction, and I'm going to keep with it. And now I'm addicted to it. Now it's like a drug. You've got to go up, and if you do well, it's like this drug. If you don't do well, then you feel depressed, which is the downside of it. So you always try to do well. But I can't imagine myself quitting. I've taken a couple weeks off or a week off, but I always get really bored out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What other characters have you say you've dressed up as? You said you were as the Pope. What's some other interesting things or interesting performance art pieces?
I did that. That was a performance art piece that I did in high school. I just ran for Pope, and the Pope died. When I was in high school in the early 80s, one of the popes died. But that would be really fun to dress as the Pope and go out on Hollywood Boulevard.
Heck yes.
I've never done the thing out there on Hollywood Boulevard as a character, but I've always thought about it. But there's just something very desperate and weird about going out there.
You don't want to be
and
weird.
doing that.
Well, I get you there.
Someone just broke up. I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh no, I said you're right. That's pretty much, you don't want to be the guy on the corner doing the stuff. Any kind of let me see, performance art wise. You say you've been to museums and stuff like that. What was one of your more like interesting, one of your more most memorable times you've had doing stuff like that?
Well, I used to show art objects and paintings at museums and galleries, and one of the best stories was when I was showing at a museum out in Laguna Beach. And I remember I was pretty much homeless at the time. I was painting, and I was living with my girlfriend. I didn't have any money. Just gotten out of art school, just quit art school at the California Institute of the Arts. And I was showing there, and the museum director pulled up in the museum. And it's not in a museum. He pulled up to the museum in his Porsche. And I went to the guy who was directing the museum. He had this big, beautiful $1 million home on the cliffs of Laguna Beach. They hired someone to drive out to my studio to pick up my paintings. Then they hired someone to hang the paintings, a professional art hanger. Mm-hmm. And then I was the only guy that didn't get paid. I was basically homeless at the time, and having the show in the museum didn't help. They didn't pay me. They paid everyone but the artist. And, that situation led to me basically quitting art because I was so sick of being a homeless famous artist. Like, I'd go down and get a copy of the newspaper. There would be in the LA Times, or it'd be in Art in America, or Art Week, or some art magazine, and I didn't have a cent. I couldn't even buy the LA Times. It cost a quarter then. I couldn't even buy that. It was just it was a horrible experience, and eventually I just had to give up and quit. So I still have an apartment filled with art objects and paintings. I have an Instagram account where I'm slowly taking photographs of all the paintings I have left. I'll also take photographs of eventually get photographs of the ones that I've sold and don't own anymore, and I'm putting those up on Instagram, and that's just Instagram / Mark Selzer, MarkSelzer. I also post them on my Facebook page. Yeah. So if anyone out there wants to just friend me, I basically accept all the friend requests right now until it's full, which is 5,000. So anyone wants to find me there, just go to it's facebook.com, Mr. Selzer.
Nice.
Mr. period Mark Selzer.
Yeah,
and then my Twitter, of course, is @Mark Selzer.
Yeah, we'll definitely get all the links, and what we'll do is we'll put them all in the podcast description, and so we can get all that stuff out there.
Do you have any way that are you selling any of the stuff that you still have in that apartment you're talking about? Do you have that posted up anywhere for people to look at and purchase?
All of it says on Instagram, all the paintings are for sale.
Excellent.
So I might start putting prices on them. I don't know. We'll just maybe see at some point. I get more and more likes on them every day. So we'll see what happens. We'll see as it grows, as it builds. We'll see it maybe start moving some. Maybe even make some others, especially as I put up. I have to get one of those little things that make slides into digital images. I have to buy one of those and start taking all of my slides of my paintings that I've sold and then put those up there as well. Now, if any of those sell, I'll have to make them again.
Yeah, well, that's fine. What I'm saying. You can always take
a lot of people don't know that, but there's a very famous painting called "This Is Not a Pipe" by the French surrealist, by a French surrealist painter, and there's actually like 20 of them, because he made like a whole bunch. That's awesome. It was his most famous painting, and so he just kept making them and selling them again.
Yeah, well,
heck yes.
People want them, so.
It's actually a fairly common practice, and there's certain masterpieces out there where there's really not just one, but many hand-painted, by the artist himself. or sometimes people think that a wife or an assistant's painted them. A lot of that stuff, too, if you go and buy a famous painting by Lichtenstein, he really didn't touch it. Usually it's executed by his assistant.
Yeah.
He didn't.
There was one of the artists I remember studying about in college that said that he had a warehouse full of assistants that would put paintings out for him, and they were the ones that actually did all the paintings. He would just walk around and tell them more or less what he wanted them to do.
Yeah, that was Kostabi. He was actually a guy that offered for me to come out and be one of his assembly line painters.
That would have rocked,
and maybe even possibly one of the people that came up with the ideas.
Yeah,
what he would do is he would write memos to his people, his idea people. I think he wanted me to be one of his idea people. And he would say, make paintings showing me in a negative light. So the idea people would come up with ideas of him. He had a basic style.
Yeah.
And they would copy that style. Mm-hmm. And the style that he developed, and then they would kind of change it and develop it and use it. And so they made, basically him standing above a bunch of people chained to painting easels, painting, his paintings and things like that. And it worked out well for him. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he just faded away, or if he's still around. I'll have to look him up and see what happened. But yeah, his name was Kostabi, and he was a wonderful artist. There's a great story about him where he sold some paintings to Sylvester Stallone. And Sylvester Stallone art buyer told him, no, don't, you send them back to him, give them back to him, because he's a terrible painter, he's a horrible fraud, et cetera, et cetera. The guy was a conceptual artist, and he's a good one as far as I'm concerned, but his art dealer or his art advisors felt that he should not be buying these paintings, and so he called up Kostabi and demanded his money back and returned the paintings. And so Kostabi just wrote on the three of them, these paintings used to belong to Sylvester Stallone, doubled the price, and resold them immediately.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Man, too bad eBay and Craigslist wasn't around.
What he does is he will have everyone in his, once the paintings are done, the guys who do the paintings will go and they'll find sketches that they like that the idea people have done from basically his prompting and paint them. And then they'll all look at them together and decide whether they're done or whether or not they're good enough to be Kostabi paintings, and then he'll sign them. Kostabi. Yeah. That's when he signs them. But there were some of his assistants that were making fake Kostabis and forging his signature on them and selling them in Japan. So he went to Japan, and he went to the art gallery and confiscated all these fake or fraudulent or forged Kostabi paintings, painted over the fake signature, and put his own signature there, and sold them as the forged Kostabis. So
his next
that
series.
was very wonderful, playing around with all of this stuff. But see, I love that stuff, and I'm a conceptual artist, and so when I'm doing comedy, I don't know whether you can tell when you're looking at it, I'm constantly trying to break, what is the stage, where are the boundaries of the stage, where can I go outside of the boundaries of the stage, things like that. There's one piece that I have up online where I get mad at the audience for not laughing. I'm talking about being passive-aggressive. The joke is I'm a passive-aggressive communicator, but I'm a very bad one. So the people that I'm passively-aggressively miscommunicating to have no idea what I'm not saying to them, which is a very confusing and maybe not very good joke. Not a lot of people laugh. It gets some light laughter. At that point, I get mad and say, fine, if you people aren't going to laugh, I'm just going to go stand over here at the edge of, the stage and read something or whatever, and just be quiet, the entire rest of the time I'm supposed to be up here. And that usually gets a huge laugh. But for me, as an artist, what I'm trying to do is think about where are the edges of the stage, When am I stepping off of it? What are its boundaries? For me, it's interesting, to play with those things, and to break the third wall of the, audience comedian kind of relationship in that way. And I have a lot of fun with that. But the person who's not into art and not into conceptual art can just look at it and just laugh, I hope, and just enjoy it. So hopefully it can be seen on many different levels.
Yeah.
Like Andy Kaufman, if you're a comedy fan, you love it as comedy. If you're a conceptual person that's familiar with conceptual art, you look at him as a performance artist and a conceptual artist, and you enjoy it on different levels. And I guess that goes for anything, pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Andy Kaufman, there's a lot of his videos online too, and you can tell like a lot of his performances are really polarizing. A lot of people just think he's hilarious, and a lot of other people just don't get it.
Kind of like Pink Floyd.
It's just like his brand of comedy is just so out there sometimes that you have to kind of meet him because he's not going to fall back for you. That's kind of what I got from a lot of your performances.
He did this wonderful piece where he would clear the room. He used to go out and he would go to colleges and he would say, okay, I'm Andy Kaufman. He'd come out in an ascot and, very formally dressed and speak very formally to the audience and say, I know that you've all come here to see me do comedy. But I'm trying to get away from that now. I'd like to get more into literature and do something more serious. So today we're just going to read The Great Gatsby. And he would sit down and start reading The Great Gatsby from, like, the copyright page. And he would just turn it in. And after a few pages, people would laugh at first. And then after 4 or 5 pages, people would start to leave. And the rest of them would start to boo. And he would say, now, you people be quiet. We have a long way to go here. We don't need any interruptions. So that eventually people would scream and yell at him. He'd say, okay. I'll do you guys want to listen to the record? He'd have a phonograph record sitting next to him. Phonograph player with a record on it. Say, should I continue to read this or do you want to hear the record? The people that were left, that hadn't left, walked out of the auditorium, would say, oh, yes, definitely the record. So he went over to the record, and he would start playing the record, and on the record, it was a record of him reading from the exact same point that he left off of The Great Gatsby.
Awesome. Yeah, that was... did you see the film Man on the Moon? It was with Jim Carrey. Where he played Andy Kaufman. They do that scene, and oh my, it's ridiculous, and it's like it's awesome. Definitely see that movie, or like I said, Andy Kaufman videos on YouTube.
Go on YouTube. Yeah, the wonderful thing about YouTube is that it's kind of a museum of our culture, of anything that you want. So you can go on there and actually see Andy Kaufman's performances. I go on there from time to time and look and see if anyone's put anything new up, because there's tons of things that he did that I haven't seen. And, I'm still always looking for those rather than the most famous performances, looking for the other things. And I always remember him and seeing, he was on the front page of every newspaper when he was throwing coffee on David Letterman and things like that. He would make the newspapers basically with these pranks. And it was wonderful. And there were other pranksters out there. There was one called Abel. And if you go on Netflix, there was a documentary. I don't know if it's still there.
What was it
called again? I just remember his last name, but he used to prank the press. And he would go around and saying, I'm having he would have his friends come over who had dogs. And he would say, yes, I'm having a whorehouse for dogs. Basically, you can get your dog laid. And the press would come and report on it, but it was all just his friends posing as customers of this dog brothel where you could come and get your dog laid. And he did endless things like that. And it was very funny. And I wish I could remember the rest of his name. Anyway, I think if you go to Netflix and just type in Abel, and if you go on the internet and type in Abel and pranks, you can see what he did. He used to also go around with a fake organization trying to get animals to wear clothes. But it was indecent.
That's good.
And they had literature. They would distribute it, and people would buy it. It was just entirely fake. And he was just, making fun. But he was also a wonderful conceptual artist that I liked.
Speaking of,
I don't know if I'm gonna. What?
Speaking of the way Andy Kaufman would kind of divide the room with anything, have you been heckled before? How do you handle situations when some of the audience starts, not responding?
I love it. I'm very. I have some of my favorite heckling experiences. I had one in downtown Los Angeles where I was with a friend, and I was doing this piece that was called Russian Bitches, about being in L.A. and how there was a contest. Why we have so many Russian bitches in L.A. is that they're having a contest in Russia every week called Russia's Biggest Bitch, and they send like the winner of Russia's Biggest Bitch with the 500 other contestants, the runner-ups to L.A. The first prize is a one-way ticket to LAX, and I go into all these it's an awful piece. I go into all these awful, and then people come up to me afterwards and telling me their stories about Russian bitches. Oh, and one guy who married a Russian woman. So I've met some very sweet, wonderful Russian girls, but anyway, a lot of them in LA are awful, and they have there's a culture clash. So I was doing that piece, and this woman the bartender at this place downtown I guess she was giving me a really dirty look, and she encouraged some guy to start yelling at me to shut up. And so the next time I went down there, my friend was saying, "Oh, you have to do it again." So I did it again, and this time she started yelling at me, "Shut up, you're a racist, you're a sexist, and no one thinks you're funny." And that was hilarious. So I'll always cherish those moments. So what I did was I said, "Oh, hey, everyone, it's one of the winners of Russia's Biggest Bitch. Here she is." Yay. Started clapping.
She was the last winner.
And so anyway, and then another time there's a lot of punk rock antagonism in a lot of my stuff. I was playing some punk rock songs. Sometimes I just go out with my guitar and play like funny punk rock songs. And this woman in the audience was yelling at me and saying obscene things to me and flipping me off to the whole thing. And I was just talking back to her and having a great time. And afterwards, I went up to her and she bought both of my CDs. I have CDs that I sell. If anyone wants those, you can go to gobacktorussiabitch.com, and that has my CD. And then you have to tell me whether you want the one, though, that has all music. They have an all-music CD, and I have just a regular music CD.
Excellent.
So, all music CD, and then I have one that has half music and half like stand-up comedy on it. And I'm working on another one with all just stand-up comedy. So anyway, eventually I'll have a website. I haven't decided what my website is going to be called yet, because MarkSelzer.com is taken by a guy who's a realtor who's also named Mark Selzer.
You know what? I wanted my website. I wanted it to be PatrickLee.com. That's my first name and my middle name. And I went online and I found that somebody had taken it, and he is a Confederate soldier actor once a year for the celebration of the Civil War. And I thought it was so funny, and I was like, man, if I could only find a way to get it. I go, but then everybody would be searching my name and finding this guy and thinking that, I'm a graphic designer who likes to dress up as a Confederate soldier.
Yeah, maybe you could put, your name and then design afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
And then that'd probably work. And I'm trying to think of what I'm going to do. I'll probably have to go buy Mark Selzer comedy.
That'll work.
Because that's what's expected. But I don't really, want to have that. We'll see.
That label.
Absurdist.com is already taken. That's the one I wanted.
That's another good one. Dang. Who are some more of your favorite comedians? Who inspired you to who do you draw inspiration from for your shows and for everyday, just the stuff that you see and observe, or how does that happen? How do you put that together?
Yeah, a lot of pranks, and the punk rock bands that were essentially pranks that I love, and a lot of artists like there's an artist named Jeffrey Valance who was one of my teachers when I was in art school. He did lots of pranks as well, and so I guess I'm kind of inspired a lot by pranks. But he did a wonderful piece where he bought a chicken at a grocery store, and then he took it to a pet cemetery and had them bury it in a coffin.
Yeah.
With a little pillow where its head would have been. And It's a wonderful piece. You can go and look it up. Just go look up Jeffrey Valance, Blinky the Friendly Hen. And it's a wonderful artwork. I love stuff like that. And I love conceptual artists, of course, Marcel Duchamp, the father of conceptual art. There was a lot of humor in what he did. He had a piece, Marcel Duchamp had a piece called The Bachelor Grinds His Own Chocolate, which was about, of course, the bachelor has to masturbate every day. Oh. He doesn't have a wife. And the piece is just what's called a chocolate grinder, which is it's a painting of a chocolate grinder. And he also had a wonderful piece about his wife called, I think it was called Tiny's Chastity Wedge. And this was a piece of clay that he just had her sit on when she was naked. And then he had it fired in a kiln. And it's his wife's, basically her crotch and buttocks area.
Yeah.
Fired in clay permanently, so it's a permanent, like, rock, basically turned it back into a rock. I love that stuff. But people today, that I like, of course, Andy Kaufman we've gone over, and there's a lot of people that I like. I like Louis C.K.
Oh, yeah.
He is a very funny guy.
I can just see him as a performance artist. And then there's a lot of people that I don't like. I really don't understand Dane Cook, how people think that's funny.
I don't think anybody really understands.
A lot of people think he's funny. He's one of the 3 comedians that's filled Madison Square Garden with people that are just brown staining their underwear laughing. And I went to the dollar bin store. I went to the dollar bin, the comedy dollar bin, down at my local record store down the street and got all of his CDs and listened to them just to try to figure out what do people think is so funny. And I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And occasionally I'll have a little, and that's it.
Yeah, it's like the lowest common denominator kind of easy jokes that can be made. But I guess, he's real popular. So I guess,
they're just like bad stories. They're just bad stories. And like it turns out so bad at the end that you gotta, chuckle a little bit. But I don't understand him either.
Yeah, well, that's good that I'm not the only one. But, and that's fine. Comedy is very different here and there. I actually met him once briefly. He's like an okay guy. Really, someone's comedy and whether or not you like them really has nothing to do with the person. In L.A., I don't go at all by how their comedy is. I go by just, do I like them as a person and, whether or not I like their stuff. A lot of people I don't. But I like a lot of other comedians that are very popular. I like Louis C.K., of course. And I like George Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
And I like Richard Pryor.
Heck yes.
And, there's a lot of people that I like who are very popular as well. One of my favorite comics is Maria Bamford. Mm-hmm. And she's wonderful. If you guys ever want to look up a great comic, you can look her up online. And she's popular. She's somewhat famous, makes a living. And then I have a lot of favorite comics that no one's ever heard of. There's a great one called John Volby. And you can look him up on YouTube, and he is the most sickening, disgusting, offensive, politically incorrect comic of all time.
Oh, no.
And he's a guy that he's a big fat man. He wears a white suit and a black bowler hat, and he plays piano. And there's no one that's ever topped his offensiveness. I even get offended and have to turn it off sometimes. And he is wonderful. He has albums and CDs. He has like 30 probably.
Oh, geez. 30
phonograph. He started putting phonograph records in the 70s. And he was so offensive, he knew he'd never be on television. He'd never be on, the radio. So he put out his own albums and would sell them at his concerts. And then there was another guy from England whose name is Ivor Biggin. You can also look him up. And he's a singer of filthy songs as well, but not as blatantly disgusting or offensive as John Volby.
Very
but
nice.
Those are some of my favorites. Mm-hmm. If anyone, and you can look all these people up online, which is one of the wonderful things about YouTube.
Heck yeah. It's amazing what the internet's done in the last few years.
And as far as
and if anyone out there wants to see my videos, of course, youtube.com/Mark Selzer, MarkSelzer.
Yeah, we'll definitely put up some of the links to that stuff up on our webpage, man, once we get this episode posted up here.
Yeah, the videos that you have on YouTube, a lot of them are kind of songs, or at least spoken word songs at the very least. How did that come about? I assume that music has a big influence on you?
Yeah, I have like 30,000 phonograph records in my house of all unusual music and mostly punk rock. I have a huge record collection. Used to have a record store for a while, and basically I love strange songs, and at a certain point, songs just started to come out. And so I started to do various songs, and I also see a comedian as a person that sings songs and does stand-up. Mm-hmm. That's my perception. You know, Steve Martin did that, and one of my biggest influences also, Steve Martin. And a lot of the comics do now. Brian Posey and Sarah Silverman does it. But people like,
Bo Burnham,
Louis C.K., of course, never do that. They just do stand-up, and some people feel, with just, pure stand-up. But I see a comedian as someone that does both.
Like a beatbox. Yeah, definitely, man. With Sarah Silverman and who was the other one that you had mentioned?
Brian Posehn.
Yeah, Brian Posehn is insane. I really, really dig his stuff.
Yeah, he does satirical heavy metal songs. And Andy Dick, who plays right down the street, is also just has like an alternative rock band where he sings funny songs.
Kind of like Jack Black with a
Adam
Tenacious
Sandler,
D.
if you buy his albums, they're all songs.
Yeah, Adam Sandler.
Occasionally a little bit spoken word, but they're all songs.
Yeah, Adam Sandler actually is very underrated as a singer.
Who else? Jimmy Fallon would do stuff on the guitar, do songs, funny songs, and stand-up also, and imitations. That's one thing I don't do is imitations. I might someday. I started working on a Woody Allen impersonation, but it didn't really work out.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to work out. It just got to have a little humor in it.
What was that?
I said, it always doesn't have to work out just to have a little bit of humor in it, Some of the times,
as long as you get the character right.
Yeah, definitely.
Occasionally I'll do voices and little voices here and there. I don't know how good I am at it. So I'm always trying to videotape myself to figure out what I'm doing. One of the things I don't like is my long hair. I have in the videos I have long hair, and I realize I do not take care of my hair well enough to have long hair. So recently I cut it off. If people miss it, I'll probably grow it back. But right now it's a lot shorter. And also I think that I need to wear a tie, suit and tie, because I think that'll exaggerate the strangeness of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
just get you an ascot or something. I'm experimenting
with that. I'm looking, I'm thinking about what I'm doing, and I'm going out and, getting as much stage time as I possibly can. And if anyone out there listening to this wants to book me, you can find the information on the web. Just send me any of my websites or Twitter or anything else. You can contact me through there.
What kind of projects are you? What kind of projects are you currently working on? Are you looking forward to bringing out soon?
Well, like I said, I'm trying to get a CD of just stand-up, because a lot of people, after I perform, I say, I have a CD. I keep forgetting to say it. I have a CD if anyone wants it, and a lot of time when I'm just performing stand-up, I need to have a CD of just stand-up. And working on that, I'm performing this weekend at a place called the Brewdog Pub in Beverly Hills, and sure, it won't be up, but I'm there. I perform there a lot. Also perform at a place in Hollywood a lot, a place called the Pig and Whistle, which is on Hollywood Boulevard. So projects now are just, continue to do YouTube and continue to promote myself, do as many podcasts, YouTube videos, and live performances as I possibly can. And try to make it work. Try to get out there as much as I can. I would love to, be like Bo. Like Bo Burnham, basically made it through YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he can perform live, and he does a great job. But there's another guy I really love, Bo Burnham, and he's about half my age, but very wonderful guy. Does funny songs, does performances, does some stand-up. Kind of like myself, wanting to use comedy as kind of a creative space.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically, what I like to do and try to do. And I hope that people are going to be, enjoying that. I was just performing at a place, I won't say basically where it is, but I was booked to do this show. And I did the show, and the guy, basically, I think what I was doing was too strange for the guy that was doing the show, and he probably won't have me back. But there was me and another guy there who were doing strange music and more performance art-oriented stuff, and the audience loved it. But the guy running the show didn't really like it, and he seemed to like the people that were doing kind of paint-by-numbers, Comedy Central kind of stand-up comedy, and the audience that he had there seemed kind of bored with that. It's kind of going laughing politely.
So he had kind of that disconnect.
He needs to look at, that his audience wants something more avant-garde. And I see that in a lot of comedy clubs. I see a lot of bored audiences because they want something a little more South Park,
mm-hmm.
and the club is trying to put up clean comics.
Yeah.
And that's very strange because there's almost nothing you can say anymore that's offensive. There's almost, Louis C.K., the top comic in the world, talks about, when he was little, he used to have his dog lick cottage cheese off of his erection. I mean, bestiality, and his daughter pooping in front of him. Sarah Silverman sings a song, Can't Find Love in the Nasty Gangbang Cum Shot, and sings songs, or pretends to sing songs out of her butt.
Yeah.
She has one of her shows on Comedy Central where it's all about licking her dog's rear end. And they were like arresting her for licking her dog's rear end because the dog's licking it, and she decides, oh, it must be really good. I should do that too. It's like, how can anything I do, be more offensive? Andy Dick is doing performances right now in L.A. I guess one of them, he had someone come up intentionally from the audience and vomit on his face.
Oh my.
So how can I, be too offensive? I've been kicked out of some places for being too dirty, and some places are weary of me because my subject matter is too hardcore, shall we say. But, it's just like, how could, with all of this out there in the mainstream, how could I be offensive? On South Park, they did an episode where they did a satire of the incredibly unwatchable torture porn movie called The Human Centipede.
Oh,
where they had
man.
a little boy with his mouth sewn to the rectum of a grown man. They're talking about, what he's eating and what's coming out and all this stuff. It's just disgusting beyond belief.
Eat the vanilla pudding.
I don't understand how anyone can be offended by anything I say, but still, I get that. I do get people getting offended.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very weird to me, because I think there's no way I can be as offensive as these other things yet I am.
Yeah, the main point of art is to just affect the audience. So
one way or another,
even if it's positive or negative, I mean, if it's happening, it's good, I guess.
Definitely.
Right. And there are artists that go out and do very extreme things. One of the most famous is a guy named, oh God, I forget his name. This is stupid. Anyway, one of the things that he did that made him famous was Chris Burden, and the piece that he's most famous for is having himself shot. And he did this in a gallery where there was a bunch of performances going on, and during his performance, he stood at the one side of the gallery, parted the crowd, and had a friend shoot him through the arm with a .22 caliber rifle.
Oh,
no.
And that was the artwork. And it made newspapers all over the world.
Hell yes. Well, the last thing you want to do is be asked to do it again, you know?
Excuse me?
I said the last thing you want is to be asked to do it again at a different museum, at a different show.
Right. Well, people would come and see him basically want to see if he's going to do something awful to himself. And he did crawl through broken glass once he's had himself crucified on a Volkswagen with nails through his hands. He had a friend who was a doctor, like Mark, with a pin, like where the nails could go through and not injure him permanently. But and then that has become kind of a cliche of performance art in the art community. People hurting themselves, harming themselves. In fact, Chris Burden went on to be the head of the art department at UCLA, and he quit because the administration, he felt, was taking very lightly one of his students harming themselves in a performance, which is good, although he should have probably stayed there. But now he makes objects, and they're wonderful objects. And anyone can go online and look up Chris Burden, and he's a wonderful artist. Also inspires me a lot, even though I'm not making objects or doing performances that are, I don't want to do any performances that are harmful to myself or really, really gross or anything like that. I very rarely use props, but I may start using props, but I don't ever want to go in the direction of, that's been done so much before, you know? Everything disgusting has already been done. For me, there's no point doing it. G.G. Allen did it.
G.G. Allen.
That is, but
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes,
go
sir.
look them up.
How do you feel about magicians nowadays? And kind of the way, like they started off like David kind of Copperfield, and now they're getting into like a David Blaine where he locks himself in cages for days on end, you know?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. Some of it I like, some of it I don't. Some of it's kind of, since I come from a, background of listening and seeing a lot of kind of extreme things in art and punk rock that I grew up around. Some of it seems a little, people are being shocked by things that I think are very mild.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like, yeah, okay. But, some of it I like, some of it I don't, just like any of it. But, I'm always glad to see at least someone do something a little bit different and bring magic to a different level and into a different territory. There was a guy on, I think, America's Got Talent that did a wonderful kind of gory thing where he pulled or pretended to pull a piece of string through his neck or something like that. And it was blood or something like that. And then he went on to do some other stuff and it wasn't very good. But that one piece was wonderful. So, it's nice to see artists, doing magic, bringing different things in. So, we'll see what happens. I don't watch it too much, but, I'll look at anything I see as interesting or different. I also don't think you have to go into an art gallery to see art. I think there's wonderful art out there, kind of stuck here and there in comedy and in rock music and in sometimes even television shows. There's some great stuff out there.
You just gotta always be
find it.
Yeah, you always gotta keep your mind
You
open.
won't find anything interesting in an art gallery.
Yeah,
definitely, Mark. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. I just want to thank you again for being a guest. It was awesome, really, really cool stuff. We'll get all your links and everything, like I said, posted in our in the description for everything, your YouTube, Twitter, everything like that. But like I said, thank you very much for being our guest.
Hey, Mark, could we send you a few questions to get you to answer? Maybe you can email some answers back to us so we can post up a little more questions that we had. And one more favor I want to ask you. If you're ever in Hollywood walking up and down the streets and you see some really crazy performance art out there or some of the people walking around out there, just take a picture, take a video, send it to us, and let us see a little bit of what you go through and what you see every day out there.
Yeah, I see some great stuff. I have a song. I have a song about the characters on Hollywood Boulevard called The Freaks of Hollywood Boulevard, where I sing about the homeless Spider-Man of Hollywood Boulevard, and the Goiter Man of Hollywood Boulevard, and the Mad Bomber of Hollywood Boulevard, which was a guy that evidently had blown off his hands taking a bomb, and now he was a homeless guy on Hollywood Boulevard with no hands. And when I first saw that, I had to sit down. It was just rough. That was just my worst nightmare. Couldn't believe it. But I think if I see some stuff out there, I'd love to go out there and get some video. A lot of times I wish I had a video camera with a lot of the stuff that I see
Definitely.
out there every day.
Yeah, man, if you could send us some photos or some videos and stuff like that, that would be excellent, just to have a visual of, like, the stuff you go through out there that you see out there all the time.
Yeah, I can also send you some links to some people that have some stuff. There was one video that was out there for a while, it's probably still out there, of a homeless guy that broke the window on a cop car and stole the laptop out of it.
Yeah.
And then was walking away with it, and then the cops jumped him.
That's punk rock, baby.
Yeah, very punk rock.
Yeah, that's punk rock. I need a laptop. Well, it was nice meeting you, Mark. I look forward to getting some more questions and some videos and stuff.
Thanks a lot for having me on here. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and that was our interview with the Hollywood performance artist, comedian Mark Selzer.
Jack of all things funny.
Yeah, like we said in the episode, we'll get all of his links to everything: his Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think we got a website for CD sales.
Yes, go back to RussiaBitch.com.
Yeah, so we'll get all that listed in the description. And
we got a list of some really good stuff here, man. I'm curious to go look up some of the stuff that this guy's into because he seems like an interesting fellow. He really does. The more he went on about it, the more and more I was like, I wanted to ask.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I've heard of, but then a lot of other people that I haven't. Like a lot of the artists that he's talking about.
Yeah, I got a list here. I wrote down like a whole list of stuff.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get those up. But that's really our episode. Episode 25.
25.
25 already.
We're at 25. So. Like always, thinkingoutsidethepod.com. You'll find all of our links. Fisher. You actually
Foster. We'll call him Foster, but we call him Fisher.
Yeah.
He's got his own web. Have you gone through and updated it? The
Not
template
yet,
or anything?
no.
Well, you better hurry up. We're inviting people to see it. So.
Oh, great.
He's got a couple days.
He'll say hi on it or something.
Thinking Outside the Pod /Fisher for Fisher's blog. It's up and going. Jimmy Thinking Outside the Pod /Jimmy for the reviews and stuff on the movies that he's seen. He's usually on top of all that stuff and gives really good reviews. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to, what's the word? Put stuff into mine. I'm trying to occupy my blog with music-related items.
Yeah, because I'll probably do
that stuff.
Video games and tech and stuff like that. I'll just find
video games,
articles and
movies,
stuff.
music.
Yeah,
everything you need. But yeah, definitely all the links. If on our website, it's if you hover over the About section, you'll find a link to each one of our blogs there.
Oh and our Twitter and our blogs there.
Yeah, every time we post a thing on our blog, we tweet it out, Facebook it out. So. Definitely check us. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, like us on like us on Facebook.
Whichever, man.
Subscribe to our YouTube.
Get your updates on social media. In other words.
Yeah. So I'm kind of behind schedule on our videos for the episodes. I'm like on episode 21 on the video.
Are you kidding me, Jimmy?
Yeah. I'm just have no willpower these days.
My God,
but I'll get to them. I'm slowly editing and putting them together.
Did you meet a new guy?
Huh?
Did you meet a new guy? What's his name?
He met two.
Oh, that's what they always tell me when I get too busy. Like, you meet a new girl? I'm like, yeah, you know.
Really, it's just TV. But yeah, we'll get all that up there, and we'll keep updating new episodes every Monday. So, yeah, that's it. That's episode 25 of Thinking Outside the Pod.
Thinking Outside the Pod.
And once again, thank you, Mark Selzer.
You
Selzer.
rock,
Yes,
buddy.
thank you. Even though I didn't say anything.
No problem.
Fisher's the quiet type.
No, it's like, hey, it was going, well without me. So I'm like, I'll just sit here and just enjoy listening.
He was like intensely into it. Foster was into it.
I'm sure he felt your presence, so I think it worked out.
Ooh,
Oh,
presence.
My static.
That's his nickname for something. Okay,
Uh-oh.
okay, that's the end of the
You don't wanna-
episode. Thanks y'all for listening.
See you guys next week, or you see us next week.
Yeah. All right.
Listen to us next week.
Bye.
Peace.